When you picture the Middle Ages, you probably imagine dim castles, candlelit halls, and people bundled in wool robes. But have you ever wondered how they actually slept? Not just where or on what kind of bed, but how they arranged sleep in a world without electricity, clocks, or memory foam mattresses? The answer is far stranger than you might think. From split sleeping schedules to communal beds and bizarre bedtime rituals, medieval slumber was a world unto itself. And if you were to close your eyes and wake up in a medieval bedroom, the first thing you'd feel would be confusion. Let's start with where people slept. Dad. If you were wealthy, you had what looked like a bed by today's standards. A wooden frame, maybe carved and decorated, with ropes or straps stretched across to support a thick mattress stuffed with straw, feathers, or even moss. These beds were often tall, with steps leading up to them. Canopies and curtains weren't just for decoration, they helped block drafts and cold. Stone rooms and offered a sliver of privacy in a world where everyone was always around. But even in these luxurious setups, sleep wasn't what we know today. For the average medieval person, a bed could be as simple as a straw-filled sack on the floor. In a small peasant cottage, everyone might sleep in the same room, parents, children, even livestock tucked close to share warmth. Blankets were rare. People slept fully dressed, often in the same clothes they wore all day, wrapping themselves in cloaks or extra tunics to stay warm. No soft pillows, no plush duvets, just a hard surface in the hope that the fire wouldn't go out during the night. But here's where things get really interesting. Medieval people didn't sleep all the way through the night. Instead, their sleep was often broken into two distinct chunks. The first sleep would begin shortly after nightfall. It lasted a few hours, maybe until midnight. Then people would wake up sometimes naturally, sometimes by habit, and stay awake for an hour or more before falling back asleep for their second sleep. This phenomenon was so normal it had a name: segmented sleep. What did people do during this midnight intermission? They weren't just tossing and turning. Some used the time for prayer or quiet reflection. Others stoked the fire, checked on animals, or even visited neighbors. For married couples, this break between sleeps was often the time for intimacy. Medieval medical and religious texts even recommended it. The body, they believed, was better suited for such activities after resting for a few hours. This rhythm wasn't some rare habit. It was widespread. Diarists, legal records, and literature from the time referred casually to first sleep and second sleep, as if everyone knew exactly what that meant, and they did. The invention of artificial light eventually changed this, pushing back bedtimes and shrinking the space between sleeps. But for much of the Middle Ages, your night was not one continuous stretch of rest. It was a two-act play. Sleep positions were also guided by beliefs we might now find odd. Lying flat on your back, for instance, was sometimes discouraged because it resembled a corpse. Sleeping on your side was considered healthier, and there were even instructions about which side was better. Some medical guides recommended starting on the right and switching to the left midway through the night to aid digestion. Dreams mattered too. They were seen as important messages from the divine or glimpses into the future. A strange or frightening dream wasn't just shrugged off. It might send someone to the priest for interpretation or penance. Some people even wore charms or amulets to ward off nightmares, believing evil spirits visited them during sleep. The idea of personal space during sleep was almost non-existent, unless you were incredibly rich. In monasteries, monks slept in long communal dormitories, each in their own small cell or bed, rising together in the middle of the night for prayers. In inns or taverns, travelers often shared beds with strangers. It was not uncommon for 2 or 3 people to sleep in the same bed, especially during cold winters, when body heat was the best insulation. This wasn't considered strange or inappropriate. It was simply practical. In royal courts, bedchambers might be more private, but even then, the line between public and private was blurry. A nobleman's bedchamber could double as a meeting space, a council room, or a place to entertain visitors. Servants might sleep on the floor nearby, always ready to assist at a moment's notice. If you were a high-ranking lady, your maid might share your bed, not out of intimacy, but as part of her duties. The environment was far from quiet. Without insulation or double-pane glass, every creak of the wooden beams, every howl of wind through a gap in the shutters, and every cry of a neighbor's baby echoed through the night. Dogs barked. Roosters crowed too early. Rats scurried across thatch roofs or nibbled at crumbs on the floor. Sleep came despite the noise, not because of its absence. Security was a real concern. Doors were often barred from the inside. Some families slept with weapons nearby in case of break-ins or attacks. Fire was another danger. An overturned candle or spark from the hearth could turn a cottage into an inferno. The fear of not waking up was real and ever-present. And yet people adapted. Sleep was seasonal. In summer, it came later and was shorter. In winter, darkness stretched the hours of rest. Without clocks, people followed the natural cues of the world around them. Birds, temperature, the position of the moon, these were their timekeepers. A rooster's crow or the tolling of the monastery bell would guide them through the hours. For children, bedtime could be both cozy and chaotic. They might sleep beside parents or huddle together in a shared corner of the room. Lullabies were sung softly, stories told, prayers whispered. There was comfort in proximity, even if space was tight and straw poked through the bedding. For many children, sleep came easily. Fatigue from daily chores made sure of that. On rare occasions, sleep was an event. During festivals or holy days, some people fasted from sleep altogether, staying up all night to pray or celebrate. Pilgrims on long journeys might find themselves resting under trees or in church porches, taking short naps instead of long slumbers. In times of war or unrest, people slept in shifts, always watching, always wary. And still, for all its hardships and oddities, sleep in the Middle Ages had its own kind of rhythm. It wasn't just about rest. It was tied to faith, community, nature, and survival. It was a shared experience, both physically and culturally. People understood the body's need for rest, even if they explained it differently. They listened to their world, not to alarms. They slept when it was dark and worked when it was light. And in between, they found meaning even in the quiet hours of the night. So next time you curl up in your soft bed, scroll through your phone and wait for sleep to find you, think about the medieval sleeper. Wrapped in wool, resting beside family or strangers, waking in the night for a quiet moment of thought or prayer. Their sleep might seem strange, broken, even primitive. But maybe, in some ways, they knew more about rest than we do. After all, they listened to the world's natural rhythm and they dreamed beneath the stars. So now you know, medieval sleep was far from simple. It was broken into shifts, filled with superstition, and deeply shaped by the rhythms of nature. Forget the image of a peaceful night snoozing in silk sheets. Most people slept fully clothed, packed into tiny rooms with family, servants, or even animals, with no concept of privacy or comfort as we know it. The silence of the night was never guaranteed. It was noisy, cold, and sometimes even dangerous, yet somehow people still found rest. They made peace with the darkness, embraced the pause between first and second sleep, and trusted the world to keep turning while they closed their eyes. Next time you pull up your blanket and reach for your bedside lamp, remember there was a time when people slept to the rhythm of firelight and moon shadows. Maybe it was stranger, maybe it was harder, but it was also deeply human. If this glimpse into medieval nights made you rethink your bedtime routine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time. We'll keep digging through the past to find the stories that time tried to bury, one curious detail at a time. Sleep well and dream even better.